Welcome to Hack Nation. I'm so excited that you came here and got your free account and that you've joined us. This is a group where we can all be free to be ourselves, to learn and grow together. And trust me, I believe that every interaction I have with another human teaches me. And so I get just as much out of every time that I interact with each one of you. So I appreciate your questions. I appreciate your presence here and your participation. And what I want to talk about in this video, sorry, I got some flies from the woods attacking me. What I want to attack, what I want to address in this video is how my method of coaching works, what your part is. The only thing that we need to do to understand how to fix ourselves is to get a clear vision of what we are. And so there's so many parts of us from our past. Our inner child probably could be dozens to hundreds of different pieces, depending on how traumatic our childhood was, depending on how many influences we had as a child. Our present self might be riddled with all kinds of relationship trauma, depending on how many relationships we've had. There's just so many layers of programming that it's hard to break through and to see how to control the whole system. And so, what I like to do right in the beginning is to teach my clients how parts work. We all have many parts inside of us. I mean, we feel like we're one person, but that one person wants to be healthy and eat junk food, wants a long-term relationship, but doesn't have the patience at times and works against that. There's always ways that we're working against ourselves because there's so many different parts of us, and some parts of us believe that we can have it, other parts don't believe that we deserve it. And these are unconscious parts. These are the parts of ourselves that Carl Jung called the unconscious. And he said that until we make those things conscious, they will rule our lives, and we will call it fate. And so the easiest way I've found to make those things conscious is an illustration that I use for my clients. And this doesn't necessarily have to be true. This is just a way to see the system. And there's a lot of truth behind it. There's a lot of quantum physics and science and real understanding behind this metaphor. But for the most part, it's a mental way to organize all the parts of ourselves and to get them in line and working together. And so the first thing that I had to do in my journey was I had to recognize that my body is a collection of memories from the past, and all of my trauma is stored in my body. And as I learned more and more about hypnosis and how the unconscious mind works, I would see accounts where people would come in for a whole other problem, but on one account somebody was limping, and when they were walking into their hypnosis session and the practitioner asked what had happened to their knee, and it happened to be a wound from when they were in high school and they didn't make the winning touchdown, and it cost them their entire career as a football star. And that shame had carried in this limp, and the knee hurt. And in that session, when they dealt with that trauma, the knee injury went away. And so that taught me a lot of our past trauma is stored in dis-ease in our body. When we deal with the trauma, the body goes back to ease. And I found that often with my clients. When people come out of narcissistically abusive relationships, or they come out of toxic childhood homes, they're just riddled with autoimmune disorders, cancers, just all kinds of physical ailments. And as soon as we straighten out their mental thinking and we put their identity to where it should be, and we fix the I am enough belief, and we show them their power, the body seems to balance and go back to ease. And even life-threatening diseases can reverse. And so in the beginning of your journey, when you're learning how to connect with yourself and you're trying a new way rather than going to a doctor, when you're trying to go inside, when you're trying to meditate, and you're trying to do breath work, and you're connecting with yourself and nature, it's really important to suspend your belief in what's happening right now, because that's one of the first principles that you have to learn, is that what you're seeing in your life right now is actually a reflection of your past thoughts. And that reflection is probably going to continue for 6 weeks to 6 months, no matter what you do. You could change all your thoughts, get your identity shifted, and then go right back to your life, and you're going to see the same patterns for a while. But what would happen if you could do that? If you could instantly shift, and you can, this video might do it for you. If you could just shift to your future self, if you could shift to the person who's already figured it all out, you would start interpreting the raw data differently. The things coming at you, the phone call coming in. If you were in your future self power, then you see an ex-wife calling you, you wouldn't cause a panic attack because you would know you could handle it. All that's happening right now is you're losing your identity in the middle of the raw data coming at you because you don't know how to control the whole system. And so in the meantime, while you're trying to learn how to control it, while you're trying to learn how to get control of the emotions, the energy, the electricity in the system, all you have to do is focus on knowing that these feelings, the thought that your boss at work treats you like your parent, your toxic parent, or your friends treat you like your toxic siblings, or this pattern from the past is repeating. The way through that is to remind yourself that those are body memories, and it's reasonable. Your body remembers the things that it doesn't know why they happened. And it remembers them because it disassociated while they happened to some degree, whether it was an awkward social situation or whether it was outright extreme, the worst kind of abuse you can imagine. Your conscious mind somewhat checks out whatever it can't understand, and the unconscious body endures it. And then, as the famous book is entitled, The Body Keeps the Score, the body remembers what happened. And once we grow up to an age where we have enough life experience that we can make sense of that situation, the situation starts repeating energetically over top of our raw data. So we'll be driving to work feeling like the kid going to school because of the trauma that we had as a child, not because work is the same. We've recreated that situation in our head, and as soon as we fix that trauma inside, work will look totally different. And that's hard to see right now. It's from where you're at, I'm sure that doesn't even seem real, but there's a famous quote, I don't remember who said it, but it says, "As I change the way I look at things, the things I look at change." And you can see how that might be. If you're looking at something, a situation, and you don't know your power and you don't know you are enough to get through it, it might look scary. But then once you realize your power and once you realize that you are enough, it might not look as scary. And really, that's why sometimes when you look at the future, you have hope, and other times you look at the future and you're scared. It's just a different identity that you're looking through the eyes with. And those identities have different lenses. And the more power you have, the more I am enough you feel, the less lenses, the more opportunities. And so through this process of everything in the Human Programmer Academy, every one of my events, every conversation I have, what I'm trying to do is I'm trying to get the people in front of me to observe the body. And once you observe the body and how the body's feeling, now you're no longer the feeling. Now you're a separate entity. That's present self. So present self can watch the body, which is inner child, past self. The body is a representation of what we've been through. And if you are walking throughout your day and you are checking in with the body constantly, then you will see anxiety, depression, all these feelings, these negative feelings arise, and you will be able to coach yourself through them as if you're two separate people. Now, I learned this because in order to figure out a healthy mind, you have to reverse engineer unhealthy minds. And I spent the first 42 years of my life, actually 45 years of my life, I forgot the last few, in very, very toxic relationships, because I didn't know how to have a healthy relationship. And I didn't know that my participation in it and my need for it was my part in it. But what that taught me was I've had partners that have had numerous identities in their head to the point where they had different names. And over many years, I learned all the different names of the different parts and how to interact with them. And what that taught me is that it's healthy to have parts. That's how a mind could get through the worst kind of abuse at the youngest age, is by creating a whole other identity and letting that identity deal with the pain. And it makes sense, and it's workable. It's allowed this person to live a somewhat healthy life. The problem comes when you don't go back and rescue that identity. And so this process is scary in the beginning because, well, anything new is scary, but it's pretty easy when you just start seeing all those old feelings as your own inner child. And you realize that if any child that age, like at any point throughout the day, if you ask yourself, how old do I feel when I feel these feelings? Like, when did I first feel them? Usually you'll be like, oh, since I was 8 years old or 3 years old or since birth. Then you can start getting the idea of that's how old this current representation of the inner child is. And then you can start acting accordingly. If it's 3 or 4 years old, then just start comforting yourself like a 3-year-old, and think of a 3-year-old coming to you saying, these types of things happened to me. You know what happened in your past. You know what you went through. Think if you saw another child that age that had went through it, treat yourself in that moment with that much kindness, with that much empathy. That is all that it takes to get through it. Because in order to heal the trauma, you have to recognize the wound. You have to unravel what happened to that child and witness it. And that child's been looking your whole life for someone outside to witness it. But I have people that pay me to witness it. And when I do, I'm an energy healer, so I can feel the pain while they tell me. I can see pictures of what they went through. And when it's over, they're still wishing somebody could witness it because it's them. They're the ones who need to witness it. And they're looking outside thinking somebody else needs to witness it. Oh, it's you. Once you witness what you've been through and you have empathy for yourself, that is the epitome of healer, heal thyself. That's you giving yourself your own love, spending a few weeks thinking of only yourself to heal. And if you do that, it's life changing, because then you'll start in a process where you can start giving that to other people. But the world we live in has us so focused on giving outside and looking outside for our answers, we don't know that we need to do this first. We need to integrate with that inner child. Present self needs to go back and rescue the inner child and say, I know what you've been through. And that moment is kind of like the spiritual baptism or whatever moment of reckoning where your life turns around, because then somebody has witnessed your childhood pain. Now it can heal. And the two of you, present self and past self, can then start building future self. And future self really is just the best version of you. And from here, where you're at, you can't see how amazing future self is. But for me, I know I can't see how amazing my future self is, but I have a little taste of it because I started building my future self 10 years ago. So now I can look back to 10 years ago. I was still in the Jehovah's Witness cult. I had a hunch, a feeling inside that it wasn't the true religion. I didn't know it was a cult back then. I didn't know it was a high control group designed to keep me trapped. But that person back then, if I walked into a room to that poor soul, he would be scared. He would be absolutely terrified of what I became. But truth walked me here. My present self, parenting my inner child, walked me right to this moment. And I know this is where I need to be. It's been magical. I've been traveling for a week now, and everything is unfolding perfectly. So we have to trust the process. And that's really the message of this video. The process is natural. My hero, Dr. Milton H. Erickson, the best hypnotherapist of all time, the one who taught us about our unconscious mind, he really came to that conclusion. He was under the impression that, and I don't want to speak for him, there's so many people who love him. This is just my interpretation of what he taught. And I've spent the last 10 years just devouring every book about him and every video that I've ever seen of him. I believe that it was his thought that this is a natural process, that the unconscious mind wants to heal the system. It wants to heal this trauma. It just needs permission. There's even a famous session of his where the client didn't want to talk to him about her past. She just knew that being around him would help her heal. So she just asked to park in his driveway. And I think it's in one of his books or one of the books about him, but I think she just basically paid him to park in his driveway and then left the next day saying thank you. So in his belief, he was giving them permission to heal. He was giving them a metaphysical space and witnessing the healing process. Of course, he was an absolute genius when it came to how to communicate with the unconscious mind of metaphor. But that's really all that's happening with all of us. We all are awakening to our past trauma. We're all gaining consciousness together. And I believe it's a natural process that's scary. And it's scary because we're stepping outside of our comfort zone into a new level of awareness. And all the stories we've been told in the past really are false. I mean, about everything. When you awaken and you start looking around, you realize that nothing is as it seems. And that's okay. It doesn't have to be. So on the way there, I'm hoping that this group, this Hack Nation group here, will help you stay on the path and trust yourself and to learn how to become your own coach. That's why I use the analogy of human programmers, because the story we told about our life up to this point became a story of victimhood because we didn't know any better. And the way out is telling the story of being a hero, telling the hero's journey. And that's all we have to do to get out. When I found myself trapped in the Jehovah's Witness religion, trapped in my own beliefs, not even knowing how to get out of my own head, not even knowing how to give myself permission how to look outside, also trapped in a narcissistic relationship with my wife, the way that I got out was a simple story. I realized that I was a victim trapped, and one day I thought, well, I also could be a student learning. And that little shift, that little mindset shift, got me out of being stuck in a jail to systematically learning every day how to get out of the prison I was in. And that has never stopped. And that's really the key to getting out, is getting these three personalities: inner child, understanding that all your emotions you're going throughout the day is your inner child just needing to be seen and heard, having your present self see and hear those emotions and take care of them and learn the lesson that you needed to learn. Most of the time it's to protect yourself and to watch who you give too much of your love to. But whatever the lesson, once you learn the lesson, then you can get yourself to a safe place to imagine who you want to be. And becoming that person is simple. You just have to act like it. That's it. Once you act like it long enough, you are it. So I hope I kept this under 20 minutes. That was my goal. To teach you how to visualize the three parts. And then throughout the day, as you walk throughout your day, understand that all the emotions that come up are inner child, and a present mind is always at peace. Anything that gets in the way of peace, you call bullshit on. It's that simple. Throughout my day, if something upsets me, I analyze it. If I need to act on it, I act. If I don't, then I don't allow it to disrupt my peace. I look forward to interacting with you more in this group. And I look forward to getting to know each one of you and your journeys. I thank you for watching this and being on this journey with me. I'll see you soon.